Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, August 21st at 12:01 p.m. This is the Council for Human Services. My name is Veronica Bolchik. I am the chair, and this meeting is being held in a hybrid fashion, so all votes will be done by roll call. We have a group that is in room B at the trailer, and the rest of us are up on Zoom. So if I can first establish a quorum in the trailer, Deborah Gudemond
Here.
and Tara Restieri.
Present.
All right. And then up on Zoom, I see Sarah Wright
Present.
and Suzanne Keating.
Present.
All right. And Sue Minthinen.
Present.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome
right.
back.
And do we have Amanda or Kelly with us?
I do. I have neither. I did speak with Amanda earlier today. She did indicate she was going to come on, so you might just be a few moments late.
Okay, but we do have a quorum. This is Veronica Bolchik, so I believe we will start our meeting since we do have a quorum. And as others join us, we'll just note their time when they come in. All right. Next thing is the acceptance of the agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
Make
So
a
moved.
motion to accept the agenda.
Okay, Suzanne and
I'll
Sue, was that
second.
a second? Okay, so by roll call, Sarah Wright,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
and myself. So we do have an agenda.
Aye.
Next,
I apologize.
Not a problem.
okay, and now we have Amanda Wright has joined us, and it is 12:03. So thank you, Amanda. We just did a roll call to approve the agenda. So we'll go on to the next, which is approval of the minutes from 7/31/25. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
That was Sarah?
No, it was Tara.
Tara, okay, sorry. Tara, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so Sarah's second. Okay.
Yes.
So can I have a roll call then? So we'll start with Sarah,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Sue.
I abstain. I wasn't present.
Okay, thank you. And Amanda?
Aye.
Thank you. All righty. So now we're on to public comment. Do we have any members of the public here? I'm going to ask for some help from Alexandria. Do we have any?
No.
No? Okay. All right. With no members of the public, we will move on. And we're on to item number 5, which is a recap of our meeting on 8/8/25 with CRC and the finance director, Brian Turbot, regarding grant application process and parameters. We did have 2 members from, I believe it was 2 members. Tara, you were with us on that as a member of the public, and Deborah, you were there also?
Yes, yeah.
Did I get was anyone else there?
I was there as a new member of CRC.
You were there at CRC. Okay. All righty. So just to fill everyone in, it was an extremely beneficial meeting. It was a very open conversation. We posed a few questions to Brian just to see, before we get too far down the road, is it possible within the parameters of procurement for the town of Nantucket? So the first thing that we asked about was, is it possible to put a cap on the award amount? And the answer basically came back that yes, we could do that. So That was one of the considerations of having no more than $100,000 in a grant application. Some of the conversation that focused around that was, well, what happens if someone wants more than $100,000? Could they apply for 2 grants? If it is a specific program, I believe we said you can do that, but no one grant would get more than $100,000. Jericho, I'm going to ask for you just to verify that I've got that correct.
I think largely, we didn't make any decisions during that meeting, but we did discuss the legality of that as well as capacity grants.
Right.
It's just my personal opinion, based on how we've done this in previous years and some issues that have come out with processing, that we should really only allow 1 grant per agent per funding source. So one grant per agency. I do think that we can work, if there's programming, then we should accept potential grant applications, both on the capacity grant and then the like 100K, like we shouldn't be taking 5 applications from a single agency, just because from an administrative point of view and from an outcome tracking point of view, that's not the ideal way to do it. But I think flexibility on that, and then the availability of the capacity grant is going to make it easier. So you could apply for a programming grant that would be for a particular program or service with a definitive start and end time that lines up. And then the capacity grant, which is what we're calling, but it can also be looked at as an operational grant, would be funding that would allow for, would not be directly tied to a given program. So it could be for capital, or not capital, but for licensure, for equipment purchases, for operating expenses, for staff time, all of that could be just as part of a singular capacity grant as we've defined it. Did that sum it up right, or did I
Yeah.
get too deep into the?
No, that was,
Okay.
that was
No,
great.
that's good.
That was good. And capacity is a new word or a new concept for us, but it is a common thing in the grant world. And this past week, Jericho and I have been going over some of the parameters for that, because this is going to be new for Town of Nantucket grants. And, you know, we pretty well want to develop like a checklist of, is it appropriate for my organization to be applying for a capacity grant? And it would be number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Because it's meant for an organization that's been in existence, that basically relies on grant monies to keep the doors open, to keep them providing the services that their charter has them supplying. Much different than a program grant that, and I think where we came up with this is over the past few years, we have organizations that our grants have primarily been program grants, which means that you need to outline your program with a budget, et cetera, staffing, et cetera. And for some organizations, they've really had to almost like putting the round peg in the square hole. So we hope that this ultimately makes things easier, but we also know that it's going to cause a little bit of concern and confusion, which leads to the necessity for communication with the potential grant applicants and doing an information session. But we know that beforehand, we have to have the parameters pretty well black and white. You know, I'll just use an example. Someone like the food pantry, NIFRA, you know, they don't have many new programs. It's basically, it's keeping the doors open, keeping the food flowing, keeping the supply there. et cetera, et cetera. Their staffing is very, very small because it runs completely, except for a manager and an executive director, it runs on volunteer. They would be potentially appropriate for a capacity grant. Someone like STAR program. The STAR program, it's very program specific. This past year, we funded their summer, one of the summer programs that they did. So it was very specific for this time period. This is the staff that would be involved, the number of clients served, et cetera. So that is a good example of a program grant. So those are pretty well with existing organizations on the island where they would fall. But the information session and the guidelines are going to be extremely important. And Jericho and I have been pounding that out the past week or so. And I don't know if we're quite there yet with all of the parameters, but at least we're getting close.
Well, I can do, sorry, we had one in-room question.
All right.
Yes.
So just for clarification, so it sounds like there's the program and then the capacity. So if I was an agency, right, could I apply for the program piece and then also for the capacity piece?
So
Is there
the-
separate funding for each?
There is one funding source,
Okay.
and that actually raises an important point. We will likely not be able to do, and I'm waiting to hear back from finance on this point. We will likely not be able to do capacity grants under the funding source used for the substance misuse grants. Because that money has additional restrictions on use. And we probably will not be able to do capacity grants under that funding source. I need to confirm that. The other thing is, so in theory, there shouldn't be a problem with a capacity grant and a program grant.
Mhm.
The practical issue is that multiple grants operating under a single funding source during the same financial cycle starts to get really internally confusing because we don't have systems. We've never done this before, and finance changes slower than other things for the most part
Yeah.
because it's the money. So we don't have a firm guideline on that yet,
Okay.
whether or not you could apply program and capacity. My suspicion is that it would be better if we don't do that. If you're going to go for programmatic grants, you should go for a programmatic grant with a clearly defined start and end.
Yeah.
There's also, we're looking at restrictions on who can apply. It might be something based on, and like, you would need to have been in operation for X number of years. You would need to have a total operating budget in excess of a certain amount. And I'm checking on the legality and appropriateness of those kinds of restrictions. Because the idea here for these capacity grants is to remove the need to tie a lot of operational expenses to a program. And then have an inflated kind of like program related budget. If we start letting both of those commingle, we go against that anyway. As of right now, I don't have a complete answer for that. It will be totally ironed out before the bidders information session.
Yeah.
And before the we do any communication around releasing the RFP.
It's basically just one lump sum of money that.
Technically, we have 650K, which
Yeah.
we are deciding how we want to allocate.
Okay. And then, sorry, one more question, then I'll stop. When you say capacity, when you say staff time, like, that means a lot of different things in my
This
head.
would be unrestricted. You could, if you,
Right.
what the general process would be is in the application, you would list what your anticipated uses are,
Alright.
how you would judge that money well spent internally, so we can measure if that's a good bet on our side. And this is stuff that is
Yeah.
coming, like it's still working out, but what I've generally found about these style of grants is that they're intended to increase the amount of volume of service that a program can
Yeah.
deliver or offset operating expenses. So basically that would let you ask for X amount of money, you spend it however if you find most appropriate to keep operations going.
Yeah,
You don't necessarily need to keep exactly to the budget you propose, but then at the end of the year, and prior to an additional capacity grant, we'd look at that and say, did you meet your own targets that you set for outcomes at the beginning of the process?
Okay.
And then did you spend the money the way that you thought you were going to? But it could be used for any expense associated with the operation of a nonprofit that receives the grant. So
No, I think that's wonderful. So thank you.
And Jericho, one of the other things that we did discuss is quarterly reports. So quarterly reports for capacity grants would be similar to for a program grant, where at the end of the quarter, this is what we've spent, this is what we anticipated, almost looking at a profit and loss statement moving along. So there would be checks all during the year, and it's possible we have grant applicants that don't spend any of their grant monies for 3/4 of the year. They may only spend it in 1/4, but we still, as the town of Nantucket, need to keep track of where people are. And we don't want to have a surprise that at the end of the year, all of a sudden, oh, oops, we didn't spend the money given, and can we carry that over to the next year? Which that cannot happen.
Yeah.
It is one of the big no-nos in how we're fiscally set up, and it is for the year. You know, you use it or you lose it is what it comes down to. So, and I think when we've looked at this over the course of the last few years, I don't think we've ever had anyone not use 100%. We had one situation, but we don't typically have someone who has asked for $1 million and only spent $100,000. That hasn't happened.
We've had a couple of situations arise that were atypical in a variety of different ways. Like there were system or processing errors, or there were timing errors. But yeah, we generally utilize 100. Like we don't return a lot of money from these grants.
Yeah.
Right.
We did have, Sue had one online, and then
Okay, Sue.
Thank you. I was thinking back, I watched the video of the meeting, which was super helpful. So if anybody wasn't able to attend, it's worth watching. And one of Linda's concern was that $100,000, whatever number is settled on cap. And I'm wondering, as a transition time, that we make a suggestion that you don't apply, kind of like a recommendation, like we're trying to cap things. Well, I don't know, just give a suggestion of maybe applications under $100,000 more favorably looked upon, or there's language for this that I don't have on my grasp right now, but sort of encouraging people like, hey, save some for everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because we are also have our needs assessment, which should give us a good picture, but we're not going to be able to work with that information probably until fiscal year 28.
Yeah.
So it's down the road. So in some ways, we want to try to be making, whether it's baby steps, but steps in the right direction. It's interesting, and I had a whole bunch of reading material with me. I'm off island at the moment. And Jericho, I came across something that I'm not even sure if you have, but it's a document from 2010. Do you have the document from 2010? That
many documents from 2010.
okay, I know. But this was the Council for Human Services Back to Basics CHS report and recommendations. This wound up in my hands sometime late last year, and I remember going through it and saying, oh, but it's interesting. One of the recommendations there, they did talk about not give it, well, first of all, they broke it down into the basic, the needs area. So the level 1 we know is food and shelter. And they made a strong recommendation back then that whatever amount of money we have, that 30% should be given to food and shelter because that is a basic human need. You know, you need to have food and you need to have shelter. So they made a recommendation of 30%. And then an additional recommendation when you go through this massive thing is that with the money that is left, that no one get more than 25%, which adds a different spin on it. You know,
25%
Of the
of,
whole.
And the whole grant,
the whole that's left, no one gets more than 25%. And
that would be, sorry, just for context, that would be at current values, that would be 25% of 650 is like 200,000, is like a little under, like 175, 160.
well, if you take
Yeah.
the 30% off of that, take 30% off and then that. So it's I haven't done all the math, but it's, you know, as we go down the road, it'll be interesting for us all to take a look at this because it's sort of like, in some ways, you know, we don't have to reinvent a wheel. And I think what we've been doing is sort of tweaking and getting back to, you know, some of the basics. But it was very interesting when I saw that because the level 1, level 2, and level 3, level 2, according to this, and this is still in our grant application now, is everything else except for emergency. So that level 2 is huge. Everything, it's all the behavioral health, it's the healthcare, it is substance misuse, it goes on and on and on, youth and elder service. And, you know, then you have emergency, and emergency is described as things that would supplement our emergency services. So it'll be interesting how our new needs assessment will look at all of this. And that's why I think we need to be making changes, but also know that we're not going to be settling in on anything until we have all the data for sure.
So a question and then a statement. So I did the math quickly. So that would actually be 25% of what would be left would be max of $113,000. So we're not off by if we cap it at 100 based upon what you were reading and what you read from 2010.
Right.
My question was, and I thought about this after the meeting, I may have thought about it late in the meeting, which was, we're talking also about a cap, but should we not also talk about a minimum? Because, so for example, if you have an organization that is appropriately applying, if they meet the criteria, in the state of Connecticut, we had a minimum that the give would be 5,000 of a minimum give to an organization if they met all the criteria. So my question is that something that we should also think about?
So
Yeah.
May I?
Yes.
So two things. One is partially a reference to the previous suggested cap. Purely on an administrative and practical point of view, I think it is a very good idea just to do a hard line. We can adjust it up a little bit if that is the case. I would look at our actual awards from last year specifically to see which ones we awarded over 100K and what the difference would be, and then adjust that cap from there. But it is vastly easier to explain and consistently get a hard line than a suggestion. And there is a lot of ambiguity going on this. There's already a lot of things in motion this year. I think I decided, like, jointly with Veronica to not do the sector specific totals, which is sort of because that plus capacity grants, plus incremental changes, plus needs assessment is a lot for people to get fully figured out by over the course of the next month, essentially. So my suggestion would be just, we look at the previous year's applications, we determine roughly what the cluster of high-end awards were, and we make the cap right around that line. We can tinker with that on a year-to-year basis if we hear some issues concerning that. And then just, sorry, I got locked into that
Yeah.
one. The other question that you had
The
was
minimum.
minimum. I think the lowest request we get is from South Coast Legal, and it is essentially
Five.
just, it's five. So
Yeah.
I don't think, I think we can include that. As of now, I don't think anyone has requested less than five in several years.
Yeah,
So I don't think I think that might be a good policy thing. The only other agency I can think of that would apply for something in that range is
Star?
Star, maybe for a single program. My only concern about that is if they think that it's gonna cost them 2K to make to run the program, and they can run the program at 2K, I don't see why we would make them ask more, but that's really like, nobody's doing that. Like, no, everyone's gonna be crossing that threshold anyway, so I don't.
I think the point is, from the organization's perspective, you at least know that you're gonna get something. And so then if you are limited, and we ask that question of, if you don't get the funding, what happens? That they are already thinking ahead, that I'm gonna get a minimum of 5,000, so at least I can plan based on that minimum. So I think it gives a little bit of, it's us sort of giving that line to the organizations to say, we want to help as many people and as many organizations as we can. We're gonna give you a minimum of 5. And so they can at least fall back on that and say, okay, if I don't get my 10, I know I got 5, this is what I'm gonna have to do in order to make it work.
Mhm.
I feel
I
like that
see.
sounds nice, but I worry. Like, I think sometimes we do have to just say no to people, even if they're qualified and they make all the right moves. Like, I think we do have to make hard choices, and we did this year, and they were very difficult choices, but
Yeah.
I would hate to promise 18 organizations that followed all the rules $5,000.
Right, but I
we-
think that you still have to have, these are the parameters. Have you met the parameters? If you haven't met the parameters, then, you don't get the 5. Jericho, we've had in the past,
We've made the decisions in the past of not giving based on sort of, you didn't really, you guys were not following what we were asking. And I think that's why the application itself and the checklist have to be very clearly defined, that if you don't meet this criteria in any one of these categories, that you're just not gonna qualify for any funding at all.
And it also means, so I think functionally what this would mean is that during deliberations, we would not adjust a request down below 5K.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that's a decent fail safe, as long as it's separate from, like, you're not guaranteed 5K, but the lowest you're gonna get if you're gonna get something from us is 5K.
Yeah.
That seems to preserve the degrees of freedom that we're looking for to like get
Right.
good applications and because, so the other thing is, and this is something that I've been like batting around for a long time, the original mission of this grant process was first time applicants for new programs.
Yeah.
So having like a first time or a new program fund subset of this is something that I'd like to get back to. And that could be something where it is like, hey, if you meet the threshold, you get a 5K micro grant to try off something off with no expectation you'll be able to apply for it again next year. As sort of like an experimental fund, more or less. But as we move to more operational support through this grant thing, it might be better if I just try and find a different funding source outside of the Article 9 approval process.
Yeah.
Right. Jericho, that's exactly where I was going to go, that we've talked about almost like human services, the human services department having a fund of, and I'm just pulling a number out of the air, $25,000. And they are for emergency, or maybe not, let me take emergency out, smaller programs. So if someone comes and says, it's like a mini grant. I want $1,500 because we're going to do, meditation at noontime, at the library. And we need that money. It wouldn't go through the entire process the way we're doing now. You would, as the director, have discretion to, and we would probably ask for a report on, who has applied, who's getting money, and justification for that, just as an oversight.
Well, and then we've had a lot of programs that we're not sure if they're gonna take off or not. And so it's a chicken and egg, like if you build it, they will come type
Yeah.
situation. It would be better to not have. It would be better to have a different funding source and to not treat those necessarily as grants, but as gifts. And the 5K number is the threshold for triggering certain provisions around procurement. So micro loans or micro grants or micro gifts in that area, if they were not subject to the same approval process as Article 9 for these CRC grants, then that would be a good, I think that'd be a good thing. It is not the best environment to be trying to track down fresh funding sources. This is not something that this is something I might have been able to support last year when I still had access to some state and federal grant funding that is
Right.
no longer in existence. But it's something I'm actively exploring going forward. And I think that when we have that, when I have a funding source is when we can start talking about this, I think. Or if we work out a partnership with, like, this comes back to our discussions of how we were trying to cooperate and collaborate with other funders. There are some discussions across different funders of what type of programming, what type of stuff we're trying to work on. And that is the place where we may use the town to identify and solicit responses and then have another charitable foundation provide, like, that's not subject to procurement law and has a little more freedom in how it operates, do these seed or innovation grants or loans or gifts, however we look at it. That is not foremost on my mind right now in terms of grant related stuff, but it
Right.
is something I've been like hoping to develop over the last couple of years.
Right.
Quick question. If you have, let's say, a newer organization, it's been around 2 or 3 years, and it now, obviously, because it has been running and functioning for a couple of years, does have operational costs, and so they could apply for a capacity grant for their operational costs. But because they're still young and they're still growing, there are other programs they would like to institute. Would they then apply for a program grant for, let's say, 1 or 2 programs, thumbsuck number $20,000, and $80,000 for their operational costs? Then at the end of the day, if they've hit their target, would they still then be allowed to apply for these micro grants as and when they become necessary during the course of the year, considering they're still growing and they're still trying to decide what they can offer, what fits where? Or is that too complicated?
So
No.
I think conceptually that the micro grant should be completely and totally separate from the
Yeah.
CRC and CHS grants.
Okay.
What I don't want is I don't want there to be a gaming of the application process.
That's what I'm trying to,
Yeah, and I also don't want frankly, I don't want the complexity of having multiple grants under the same funding source for the same agency concurrently. I think that my personal belief, and we need to hash this out both legally and best practices.
So they should
and
pick their
attempt-
poison.
Yeah. My
Right.
personal belief is you apply for one
Yeah.
of these grant sources. The exception, of course, being that if you have a substance misuse program, you should be if you have a substance misuse program and a general human services program, because those are different funding sources,
Yes.
they're competitive,
Okay.
you should apply for both.
Yep.
I don't like the idea of doing program grants and capacity grants for the same agency. Just because it adds a bunch of, like, we don't have the best systems in place for grant tracking. We're working on that. We're trying to figure out better, like, technical solutions, but it's me and Lexi and one person in finance. These grants are 3 to 5% of our entire grant budget times 5 is less than half of the CPC grants. You
Right.
allocate attention and detail based on the size of the grant to a certain extent. It's
Yeah.
just impossible to not do so. So we need to be kind of realistic about where we fit in, and we should keep this process administratively as simple as possible.
Thank you.
No worries.
I think as we go down the road, we'll have more ability, hopefully, to have multiple different types of grants, et cetera, and lots of dicing and chopping of this. I'm thinking, Jericho, over the course of the last year or two, you had some separate funding that you had discretion for doling out. I'm just having a feeling that in the current environment, with so many cuts being done on a federal level, et cetera, that we may have organizations or segments of our population that are going to have needs that can't be addressed with the full grant application process. So if in your budgeting for next year, because I see that as being almost like a line item for supplemental needs, or however, if that can be done, even if it's a small amount, I think.
What it would look like budget. So this is similar to the emergency fund idea that floated in CRC a few months ago. We discussed if your grants are canceled by an agency that you had a contract with, similar to what has happened repeatedly in the last couple of months, then we should have some way to support organizations operating in that way. The unfortunate truth is that emergency response is not what CRC is configured to do. Because of the nature of our funding mechanism, we cannot pivot on less than a year. And that the municipal budget is also similar to that. I need to justify what specific use I am requesting a funding increase for. They are very much understandably uncomfortable with what can look like a municipal slush fund in that it is not limited use. If I was to request something like that, I would be requesting it now for next year, and it would look functionally like a professional services budget item. And I think that in the current environment around belt tightening, concerns around tax intakes, concerns around how state and federal funding impacts are going to, like, the scope of the possible uncertainty in municipal budgets is bigger now than it has been, certainly at any point in my career, as short as that has been. But the core thing here is that is not the kind of thing that municipal government is configured to do well. I think there are ways for us to ameliorate that risk, but they're primarily going to be partnerships with private organizations, is my guess, and private philanthropy. It is unfortunately the case that CRC is not the right tool for this. And that whole town meeting budget process is just gonna make it really difficult to, like, say I do that now, I won't know what I'm gonna get for the next year until at least after town meeting. And so I can't make any plans based on the funding that I don't have, especially when it's line item and not as directly subject to town meeting. That and what specifically decides, or what specifically constitutes a funding emergency needs to be ironed out extremely tightly, because there are legitimately emergencies in human services every day. We need to make, like, we just don't have the resources, both manpower, like data tracking, outcome tracking, and just in terms of the fiscal instruments we have available, they're not built for this. They're built to not do this, basically. That's also something that's like,
yeah, I'm just thinking, I remember back, when you had the rural money, and I don't remember what the full, name of that was, but when something would come up, it was, oh, I have some money left in that fund and we can apply it toward this. And there were many situations that came, not many, there were a handful of situations, but we're able to address it because you did have flexibility in that line item.
yeah, no, and I really wish that 3-year grant period started last year.
Right.
Have many more needs for it. The unfortunate truth is that that style of grant funding was considered to be extremely innovative when it was released. It was enabled largely by the language in the American Recovery Act, and in the initial tranche of money came out during COVID.
Yeah.
It was allocated under a rural vaccine equity program that then quickly transitioned to a rural health equity program. So
Right.
it could be used to address any disparity between urban and rural locales. I will likely never see that kind of grant from a state or federal level again, in the foreseeable future anyway. And I would love to try and get a line item passed. I am questionable about whether or not I will be able to do that.
Right.
And we have a hand up from Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. I just feel like, and I'm just trying to be mindful of time and everything else, the rest of the agenda. I feel like this has been a really important discussion, but I also feel like more of it is going to become self-evident as we move forward. And especially when we get to the item after when we get to the grant application review and so forth. So I think this
So-
is all important. All the points are well made and well taken, but maybe
We're not
beyond
going
the
to
scope
solve
of
it.
right.
We're not going to solve it now. And thank you
Right.
for being the time monitor there, because
Fair.
very important. Okay, with no more discussion, then we'll move on to our next item. But realize that it's not done. There's lots more that has to go into this.
And may I say one tiny thing?
Yes.
If you have additional questions on this, please email me. I'll be happy to sit down and bore you to death on this.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Our next item is number 6, which is the approval of the funding request letter that will go to the select board and the town manager. And I do want to thank everyone. We moved the meeting up to today as opposed to next Thursday because this has been, I think, 2 months in going of when this letter started, but because we needed to have approval by both committees, we backed it out because we wanted to meet with finance first. So there is a letter that everyone should have in their possession or have had in the past. And I know that there was a correction that was made, a pluralization or a S that was missing. And I believe that has been done.
Yes. it has.
So
I do have one other question on this, though.
Okay.
In the second paragraph, it says in the second sentence, among these recommendations were increased transparency for grant amounts, increased communication between the board and service provider. Who do we mean?
Committee.
Yeah.
The committee.
Either
The committees?
Yeah, I think that.
Rather than board, make it committees.
Yeah, because we're not defined as board, we're defined as the council, or so it's either should be committee or a council, or because the board is confusing.
Board
Right, the
is.
board
is-
would be
is a
select
general
board.
term, and that's not the thing to put in this.
Yeah,
So
right.
it would be with your guys' approval, committee and council.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
I do reserve the right to pick one based on flow.
yes,
In general, the committee is a subcommittee of the council, so I will. If there's, unless it is pressing that we have the joint face, and then I'll keep both of them in there. I think I'll probably keep both of them in there.
Okay.
okay.
My other
All
question
right.
based
I-
on what you were just previously saying, Jericho, is should this letter not only include sort of the idea of, increase in cost of living, to have more specific data regarding the number of services that are provided on the island, the number of people that are provided for, and the number of providers? Because I would say that if I were on the, if I was a member, of the select board, I would probably want to see, well, how many people are actually being served? How much has it increased since 2018 in particular? Because that was the last time that the funds were defined. So I just,
Short answer, yes. Long answer, I don't have time to
yeah,
properly research that out.
okay,
That's a year plus project.
okay,
That is something that I have planned. So what the important thing, so remember, this letter was originally intended to be out at the beginning of this
know.
fiscal year.
I know.
And it was intended purely to lock in our current funding levels because the substance
Yeah.
misuse funding was gonna go away.
Yeah,
Past that, it is much more, it will require, like, and also it's a, hey, we're going to ask for more money for these reasons.
yeah,
When we do this letter every year to set the funding, that's when we add in specific bits and pieces.
okay,
Making an explicit allocation process, and the actual allocation happens at town meeting, but getting a official number and having that be advertised out was the goal of that.
Yeah.
And then to have that be built into the process so we can adjust that as needs change. And to point out that we are literally working with 18 to 20% less money
yeah,
than we were with the same total number. Because I think that if you make that request, it is best to make that request a system that can ask the same thing again and again, and to build in a process by which we can be adjusting this to meet the conditions on the ground. And I don't think we had enough time to do that with the proper justification for both FinCom or select.
yeah, I think that's fine, that's arguable, I think, but if there is pushback, I think that we need to figure out how to make the time to give the actual data, because.
Well, and I'm working on building this in to portions of this needs assessment.
Yes, yeah,
And then to use external benchmarks. You know, the fact of the matter is that between the last funding change level and today, we've lost an enormous amount of spending power, the highest inflation increase in
years, yeah.
I think it's the 70s at least. But then on top of that, there are specific cost increases in sectors that are human services specific that exceed that by a great amount.
yeah,
We have to be bulletproof when we come with this request, because the belief around the needs on Nantucket is not proportional to the actual needs.
yeah,
And making this request on the back of a needs assessment is much more compelling.
yeah.
That's basically how it was just
And
timed.
we can have Kulik do a lot of this work.
Yeah.
too.
Exactly. And what will happen with this, Jericho, this letter should go.
Oh, sorry, we
And
have a question from Sue first, and then I will just be sending this to admin and they will put it in front of the select board.
right, but I think what should also happen, almost like a cover letter for this, that if they would like additional information, you know, we'd be happy to go before the board, et cetera, you know, with additional, so.
I would hesitate about putting a cover letter on this, but I can add that as a final paragraph for if you would like more information, or if you would
Yeah.
like.
Right.
This is the letter to go to town manager, go to be distributed. They will likely, it should end up being an agenda item, at which point we will be obligated to go and speak.
Yes, exactly. Sue?
Thank you. Just kind of piggybacking on what Tara said, when I was reading the letter earlier, there's a paragraph, as human services needs grow due to an uncertain federal funding environment. I feel like there's a lot more we could say, like the population change on Nantucket is hugely increased since the last time anybody looked at the funding, as well as, yeah, just
Sure.
pointing out the mounting economic problems due to the housing crisis. Just to kind of beef up, it's not just uncertain federal funding environment.
Yeah.
And that doesn't require a lot of detailed, in-depth
Yeah.
facts. I think it's lots of it's self-evident. And the population change could be easy to look up.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
it
just
just-
my
I
2
don't-
cents.
Even if it doesn't have numbers, just making, beside the change in the federal atmosphere, that changes have taken place, are taking place on Nantucket with regard to increased population, increased needs, et cetera. Just a general statement.
Right. I just feel like blaming it all on the current federal environment is
Yeah.
well deserved, still not necessarily
Right.
the
But we
real
have
problem, the whole problem.
our own situations also.
Correct.
Okay.
For me, the reason I limit it to that is because it's much easier to say we need to increase it for an external reason than for internal, but I can add a couple of lines to that. The main issue is that this thing, the first draft was like 5 pages.
Right.
If it's more than a page, it's not gonna get read in its totality. So I just really tried to keep it to 1 page.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe you bullet point it. I don't know. It's fine.
I think
Yeah.
what I'll do is a variety of reasons, and then I can like have a link to those reasons or something, or footnote it afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, it's a balancing act because this
For sure.
should be a full year study by people who are specializing in cost of living analysis with
Right.
like comparative data from 10 municipalities and projections into the future. I'm not geared to that. I simply cannot do that unless I have more staff.
Right. Okay, so can we have a motion to approve the letter with minor changes as discussed?
Motion
Yes.
to approve.
Second.
Second, all right, by roll call, Sarah,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Deborah,
I,
Sue,
Aye.
Amanda,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So motion passes, so thank you.
Veronica, who made the motion? I missed it.
I think Sue
Sarah.
did.
Sarah.
Sarah,
Oh, Sarah, and then I second.
And then just extremely briefly, so I don't miss anything, the amendments required was the additional reasons for the increase.
Yeah.
Just note that. so I don't
Here.
forget.
Yeah, a change to the board. The word board is what is it?
Oh, and board
Committee.
committee council.
right?
Okay.
And that's it.
Yeah, one committee.
And changes. in
Council committee
population.
and then population change and broader service provision. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So you did include the council and committee in the back, so
I'll
that's
just get
probably.
this, I'll get that balance.
Yeah.
With our
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And
Thank
like,
you, thank you, everyone. This has been, it's been like giving birth to an elephant, this letter in some ways. It's been going on for a long time. So, alrighty, moving on.
minute record.
Yeah. Giving birth to an elephant.
Grant application review and creation of rubric. You know, this also takes on a life of its own. And Jericho, I know that, you know, what we have in front of us is the original, and there've been some tweaks that have been done to this earlier in the week.
Or if you look at the existing rubric, the only changes I have made are in the what constitutes unacceptable, acceptable, advantageous, and highly advantageous. I looked at the set of rubric suggestions you had, and
Yeah.
a lot of those. So I am not married to a single one of these rubrics. I would be entirely okay throwing all of them out. The difficulty with the rubric writing is not in the criteria that you're evaluating. It's on the evaluation criteria, if you follow the difference.
Right.
And you need to make it simple, applicable to everything that's gonna come. Every application that comes in, which is really broad, is gonna have the same rubric. Differences are, of course, for the substance misuse, because it's a different funding source. So, given what you sent me, what I would like to do is pull 6 of those out. Come up with what I think are on it, the evaluative criteria themselves, send that around to people. It cannot be approved over email. There needs to be a actual vote to adopt and approve them. But much like the editing process for the letter would have gone better before the meeting, it's best if we get feedback on the agenda, on the rubric outside of the meeting, because
Yeah.
if we start this right
Yeah.
now, it
Yeah.
will take us 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting, Tara. This I found in a folder that I had when we first talked about developing a rubric,
Yeah.
and that goes back 3 or 4 years. And
Yeah.
there are 11 different points on this, and it goes from length of time of the proposer's experience in successfully performing services, like how long have they been in business, how long, etc. Quality of the proposer's program narrative, description of outcomes, the budget, staffing descriptions, show of cost effectiveness, show of collaborative funding efforts, showing of programmatic collaboration, collection of data results, monitoring plan, and innovation. So, you know, I think what we have is we've taken a lot of these and condensed them down into 5 or 6. And the general feeling is that we need to make it more granular as opposed to global.
Yes.
So,
In addition, we need to educate the evaluators to a degree, because most applications should not get HAs across the board. Like, there's a tendency to evaluate everything on the highest line, because that is just the nature of people evaluating things. The more you do rubric evaluations, the more you realize there's a meaningful difference between the first application you look at and the last application you look at. There's a bunch of tricks in it, so we need to get better at utilizing the rubric. But one of the best things to do for that is have a well-written rubric. So
Yeah.
my thought is we should settle on maybe 7 of these, 7,
Yeah.
8. I think maybe we iron that out, we send them around, we let people get a sense for if those are the best ways to evaluate programs. And then at the same time, I'll have some suggested rubric answers, and I can get feedback on all of that, synthesize it into a single document, reshare it ahead of the next meeting, and then see if that's acceptable to us.
okay.
There
Would it
are
be
timeline-
Would it be helpful for there to be like a working group that actually looks at last year's application, like a stamp, like, and just do it to like say, oh, this doesn't make sense?
I would love to.
Yeah.
Logistically, that's gotta be 2 or less members, like unless we have, declared meetings to do that, then.
Right.
This is one of the things that I was hoping that the study or work group components, like the sector specific ones, would kind of be able to assist with as ongoing, but we do have timeline constraints.
Gotcha.
This must be released, like I'm saying, we have to have deliberations and awards done by the end of December. We have to give a month to do this. We should be releasing this at the beginning of October and collecting it at the beginning of November. Whatever work we can get in through that time period, we should do, but it's an iterative process. It's not going to be fixed the first year. It will need to be adjusted every year.
Yeah.
What I would look for, Jericho, if after next week sometime, we can sort of bring this down, maybe invite one of the committee members to join us, because sometimes, and here comes one of my sayings, a former boss would say, we would sit in a room and after a while you get high on your own smoke because you don't have those outside view and whatever. So if someone would like to volunteer, and we can do our meeting in your office and just argue back and forth, right? Sarah, I see your hand up.
Yes, and I was just gonna say, like, I volunteer for this. I just kind of want to echo a point you made at one of the last couple of meetings, which is that, the expectations for our commitment and involvement you spoke to recently. So I think we're all aware that we're gonna have to spend some more time outside of this monthly meeting to do this exact kind of work. So I am happy to get in a room and argue with you and Jericho. Let the record show.
Okay, all right. Okay, well,
Um,
we'll pick a date and be in touch next week for
Great.
next week, Sarah. Anytime
Great,
after
thank you.
Tuesday. All right. So, can I go back
know-
just to Grant, because also we've come up with a timeline for this that And I'm going to just look at a calendar in general. So we have on September 12th, and I'm jumping around on the agenda here. September 12th is going to be the
Yeah.
26th grant award celebration. And it is going to be held now at the Dreamland upstairs in the Harbor Room. The Dreamland has generously provided their facility for us free of charge.
Wonderful.
An invite list will be, of course, all the grant, anyone who's received a grant, and they can bring more than one person. We're not limiting, just to one person. We will invite the select board, and I think we will have maybe one or two of the select board members attend. We're hoping maybe Libby Gibson would be there. She'll be invited. And this committee and CRC, I believe because if we will have more than two people, we are going to have it advertised as a meeting, and we will just have to have a opening of a meeting, establishing a quorum, and then going into our program for the day. So please mark your calendars for the 12th between 10 a.m. and noon. We are going to have light bites, hopefully provided by Lemon Press. And the fact that we're able to do this at Dreamland is a wonderful thing. We got into some potential issues. It was going to be outside under a tent, and we had some people who did not feel that was ADA compliant enough with bathrooms, etc. So we went and sought out a place that we could just do this in. And Joanna Roach was able to confirm this. So we thank her for doing that. Sarah, do you still have your hand up, or is that? Okay. All righty. So just back to that. So that's September 12th. The release date for the grants, I believe we put in as October 3rd.
Correct.
October 3rd, and the due date back will be November 3rd. So during that time, early on, we may have a bidders information session right at the beginning of October. And so they'll do on November 3rd, and then deliberations will take place November through probably the beginning of December. What happens is once holidays come, people get their time is much more limited. And so that's our general timeline. And that way the final report will be ready by January 1 to go to finance. All right, which this is moving everything up by 2 months. So we're compressing this into a shorter time period. But it's doable. It is doable. All right. So
9 and 10.
all right, 9 and 10. How about let's do a needs assessment update, and then we'll come back to the assignment of study groups.
Oh yeah, actually, no, sorry, I skipped. We should do assignment of study groups is more important.
Okay. Now, I did get from Lexi, everyone, Sarah, I did not have your selections here. Everyone selected 3. And should we be keeping this to 2 people, or can we make this 3 people, Jericho? I'm just, again.
2 people means that it does not need to be a declared meeting if they meet with the CRC representative, which means that you just meet whenever you want to.
Okay.
It is possible for it to be more than 2, but my thoughts on this is that a lot of the flexibility that this allows us will be lost if we have more than 2.
Yeah.
Right.
What I think might be useful is if there is overlap, or if there's multiple people, we add a random selection element to those, and then we make firm commitment that you rotate on a yearly basis so that you don't do the same thing each year. A big chunk of what this process is for is both to improve our ability to understand and explain what human services are going out, but also so that we can rotate people in and out of the CRC so that the load is shared broadly whenever possible. So I think it's best if we keep it to 2. If we can't get the numbers to work, or if there's a conflict, or if there's some other thing that comes up, we can be flexible. But my belief is that we should keep it to 2 just because it makes it simpler and easier to manage.
All right, because in some cases I have 4 people for 1, 2, 3, 3 of actually 4 of the areas, and then I only have 2 for, excuse me, 1 for 2, and then there's 3. So I think what I've got to do is look at the 1, 2, and 3 and narrow it down, because and what we could do is we can then just email everyone and say, you know, this is your assignment, if you've agreed with it or whatever. And if you have a strong reason for not, then we can go back and adjust it. But
What are the groups that only have 1?
for substance and for healthcare.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I think we can move some of, you know, elder care, behavioral health, food and shelter, or whatever into those areas. So,
You could also, I mean, you could pull me from, I'd be happy to go into healthcare for sure.
okay, I've got you in healthcare already because you were the only person that said
Yeah, I
health.
was like, I've been in healthcare for over 30 years. So.
Thank
So
you for following on
you're
that
there
point.
already, Tara.
Well, you can throw me anywhere too. I don't care.
Okay, and Amanda, you're the only one in substance misuse right now. So if I have someone else who is feels strongly, I can move. So, otherwise the teacher will make the assignment.
Yeah.
And then I do think that the value, like if anyone is profoundly unhappy with their
Right.
assignment, and then the rotating on a yearly basis, so everybody starts to learn something about each sector, can only benefit the organization and the island.
Exactly. So in the next week, you'll get that also. Like I said, I knew this was not going to be an easy thing, 1, 2, and 3, but you know, we have. It'll be done. It'll be done. All right.
And I apologize. I thought I had sent, I think I drafted it and didn't send it. So I just sent you my list right now. So sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll be moved into that list and shuffled
I'm
around.
flexible. I'm flexible. Thank you.
All right. It's a democracy, but ultimately it becomes a dictatorship, you know. So that's that. Can we get an update on the needs assessment?
Sure. I'm going to combine 9 and 10 because you've already heard about 60% of my updates as they relate to human services when I was talking about the grant stuff. The only other thing to discuss is the needs assessment. Second meeting with the consultants was Tuesday, I want to say. That is our ongoing tempo. Is going to be every 2 weeks. I meet with them to talk about progress, to do reach outs. We've settled on a preliminary steering board committee. We've got people from, we have several people who are in the room, both literal and metaphorically, that are on it. We've also got, hopefully a member of the select board will be joining us. And a couple people from the nonprofit community. It will be meeting as needed. I'm expecting that tempo to be no more than once per month. A lot of it is going to be feedback on the survey instruments. We've got sample survey instruments now. Those are going to involve tailoring. The biggest procedural updates are going to be timeline. The initial primary data collection is intended to be starting in September. We are bifurcating the survey instruments, one for seasonal people, one for year-round people, with very specific determinants of both of those things that apply both to guests, residents, and workers. And then we are going to split data collection into what we're terming a 2-step. So we will open up data collection for seasonal workers and year-round residents in September. It will stay open until the start of next summer season, which means we'll be able to capture 2 time series for the for the seasonal workers, the end of summer, and then the beginning of summer when the seasonal populations are at their greatest need, and we get a best assessment of capturing them. And then we will have a full year of collecting data for the year-round residents so that we can capture a variety of steps of data over that, and that we can get a very nice, very broad, very representative sample of the island community. I think we're targeting for 400 or 500 responses. In the past, this group has got, that's roughly where we would need to have statistical significance for an island of our size. My fondest dreams are to hit the 4 figures, not 5 figures. To hit 4 figures for this. I would be very happy if that was the case. We will have, one of the consultants will be coming down to do some basic initial work, and there will be stakeholder meetings. I'll be using the brains of the people on the steering committee to make sure that we cover the gambit of service providers, so that when the consultants reach out to do stakeholder interviews, they will not miss anybody. And then we're going through the human services sectors one by one and trying to connect them with at least one representative that can connect them to other people. So we're going to connect them to our Veterans Affairs officers to look at the whole, then whoever they get recommended to do stakeholder meetings, and then help distribute the survey instrument through those communities, so that we'll be able to get as close to the community as we can and let them know that there's a survey upcoming, develop some trust, and make it understood that responding to this is worthwhile and will hopefully have impacts locally and elsewhere. And that's it.
Presumably this will be in many languages.
Everyone we can. The representative who's coming in is at least potentially trilingual. They are planning to come and do initial stakeholder meetings in Spanish to Spanish speakers. All the material is going to be translated to at least Spanish, English, and Portuguese. I will be looking into ways, I think we have some money put aside to do like on-call contract translation. So if there's a population that needs it translated, there is a chance we'll be able to get written material at least translated to meet a language as necessary. So yeah, we're definitely planning the full linguistic agility and really as much cultural competency as we can. I think that was a big chunk of why we selected this particular agency, was their ability to work in this environment, this kind of environment.
Yeah.
Veronica, you're on mute.
I'm competing with a hacksaw something downstairs. Anyway, usually part of your back in the past had to do with vaccinations. Will the health department be hosting any vaccinations this year?
Yes. We have ordered vaccine, flu at least. We have no indication of what the COVID vaccination situation is going to be like at all. We don't even know if there's an approved variety. We don't know if state or federal will be sending any out anywhere. We don't know how to order any COVID vaccine that is not on private pay. And we do not have any access to any of the mobile vaccination teams that we had in the past. We are currently working on figuring out what our available manpower is going to be. We are looking for qualified volunteers to do injections for nursing. So I believe that's EMT or nurses. It is not going to look like it has in previous years. I cannot tell you what it's going to look like. I would expect it to be a challenging respiratory disease season.
Already, I think there's people in this room that have been exposed and have been ill with COVID over the last 2 months. And it's very much out there. And, I will be looking to get a COVID vaccine. And I think I'm going to turn to Sarah if the hospital has any plans for COVID vaccines.
May I get back to you on that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think we're all in limbo at the time being, and just be careful out there. And I don't know what more to say on that, but we are going to be looking for flu vaccines also, and hopefully that will not have restrictions, or they'll be more available. Let's put it that way.
Well,
Or the
I can-
availability will be there. Yeah.
I can at least order flu vaccine in a variety of sources now. It's all state supplies so far, which has use limitations on it. I cannot get a lot of the multi-dose vials, and a couple of the varieties of extremely high test are not available for state supplied vaccine. But flu vaccines, we will have a number of them, and we're working with partners to figure out how to vaccinate most effectively. Our numbers were not great last year, and it is a more challenging situation this year from a logistics point of view, but we have a better picture of how we can, if we can get the supply, I think we're in a better position to deliver it this year. So that's the silver lining.
Yeah, it's just I see just in my circles, we've had people with COVID, people with pneumonia, people with all kinds of strange respiratory things, and it's August. It is not January or December, so we'll be looking for some guidance for sure.
It is also worth noting that our current COVID wastewater results are the highest they've been since January.
Yeah.
So community transmission is happening. There are, I have not been as close to the variant tracking as I was in the past, so I don't know if there are symptom presentation differences for this one. I know the virulence is increased significantly, with the Omicron descendant subvariants, but there is a significant component, there's a fair amount of community transmission on Nantucket, and it is not yet respiratory disease season.
Yeah.
Technically, always respiratory.
I do want to shout out to the urgent care because I had a wonderful experience there.
So did
I
I.
had COVID, so I just want to say kudos because they really help.
Did they provide like Neolapure, like antivirals, or was it just
I actually got the Paxlovid.
Paxlovid? Okay.
Yeah, it's good to.
Okay.
That's
Alright.
the other situation that's very different from early pandemic, is that there are treatments that exist now. So it is a lot of community transmission. It's yeah,
Insurance.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Well, there's probably a long discussion on why that particular situation has evolved.
Right. Okay. So we are on to the community service items for discussion by CHS. Does anyone have an item that they would like to bring to the council?
Nope.
Okay, with no hands raised. I put back on the agenda table for the sustainable market Saturday mornings after Labor Day. There will be a table available if we want to reach out to not-for-profits. There was a grant from, I believe it was Fisher Real Estate, that actually has given to the sustainable market for a community table. So there would be no cost if someone wants to advertise their programs, wants to talk about their organization, etc. So I don't know if we want to formalize that to tell people, or if we just want to informally spread the word, but it is available.
It would be great if there was like a little blurb we could mail out to nonprofits.
Okay. What I'll do is let me reach out again to Kat, who is the manager at the Sustainable Market, and I'll just do a blurb and say, is this fine if we advertise it, and what, because it would go through her to schedule. We don't want to be involved with the scheduling. So I will loop her into that, and then we can then maybe send it out to at least our grant list. Suzanne?
Right. Yeah, I had a
Oh.
question. So instead of having a table for the Council on Human Services, we're going to make a table available to the programs that get the funding through us?
Right, or not-for-profits, not just people, but not-for-profits, because I'm not sure, would there be benefit for us to have a table?
Right. Well, I did just, yeah, information wise, but all of the tables that they give are not for profit anyway.
Right, exactly, exactly. But this is specifically for organizations that on the island. Right.
Veronica?
Tara, yes.
So I did something in the past, where I made a card that had, for the purposes of distributing information about more than one organization, I literally made a card. I did it, in Word, or I can't even remember what I did. But I just took the organization's logo, a brief blurb about what that organization does, and contact information, meaning either website and or phone number. I'd be happy to do the same thing for the organizations that we have provided grants to. And then that way, and it was just like a little double-sided card. It was not expensive to print.
I think we have some money in the printing budget. So if you wanna rough one out,
Yeah,
just use last year's report. I think
Yeah.
that should have been sent around to everybody.
yeah.
I think like that's a
Did you
good
send it to
thing.
me? So I have it in front of my.
Okay,
But I can
and
happily
also
do that.
ACT Cares. ACT
Yeah.
Cares is a resource for that, if we can pull out from that site, because I believe that's been updated or being updated with what's available on the island, correct?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
And I think I have some ACT Cares materials. Sorry, brain is starting to fade.
Or I can reach out to them too.
Well, ACT Cares, I do that.
Yeah.
So we can reach out to, I think I have some pre-prepped marketing materials, and then I need to probably re-update those anyway.
Okay, I'd be
Okay.
happy to help if you don't have the
I
bandwidth.
think it should
And,
be okay. It's just mostly like just reaching out to them and getting some designs.
and I'm
It's-
looking, that if we could, I'd be happy, September 6th, if we can do that, if we have something to, if I have some company, I guess it could only be two of us, correct? At the table, I'd be happy to do that on September 6th and see how that goes. And maybe this is a trial to see how we do it for next year, because they will go through Columbus Day, I believe, or Indigenous People Day, the second week in October. And then the market stops until next spring. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about the grant award ceremony on the 12th. I really would encourage everyone to be there. One thing that we did not put on our to-do list. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm muted again.
No, you're good. You're good.
No.
Okay, for September 12th, encourage everyone to be there. And then one thing we didn't put on our list of to do, and I'm looking at Lexi right now, is we should have name tags for people and for identification. So I'd like people to have name tags, and I'd be identified that you're a member of the Council for Human Services or CRC or the organization, the people that are coming. So please RSVP to when you get the invitation that will come out. And I then will sort of ask this group and CRC to sort of be circulating during time and just making our guests feel comfortable, et cetera, et cetera. And there will be a formal part of the program, and 10 to 12, and there will be light bites for breakfast. So thank you. Any new business? All right. Next meeting date. I know we keep saying the 4th, but I'm wondering if we would want to meet on the 18th instead of the 25th, because I'm just looking at the grant release on the 3rd. Jericho, are you there? Yes.
Yes.
I know that you were talking of having some time off. Have you nailed that down?
I have not. worst cases, I participate remotely,
Okay.
for those kinds of meetings, so, don't let that be a concern about timing.
Okay. Can everyone meet on September 18th at noon?
There is a Nantucket Senior Services Providers meeting at that same time, which affects at least me, possibly
Okay.
Sarah, possibly
Okay.
Amanda.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't speak for them. They might say, I don't care, but
What about the 11th? And what about the 11th?
The
So I
11th?
think it would be best if we have this meeting after the next contract review committee meeting, which is scheduled for the
Yeah.
5th. Did we just do the 5th?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, then 11th should be fine.
The 11th?
For me, anyway.
Works for me.
Right.
works
Works
for me.
That
Okay.
does just mean that it's 3 weeks from now, though.
That's okay.
Right, but we've got work to do to get ready.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I
that's fine.
think-
That's fine. I just wanna,
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you,
remind
do it
myself.
again?
noon this time work for everyone?
yep.
Yep.
Okay, so September 11th, auspicious day at noon. All right. All righty. All right. With no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second? Is that Tara? Okay.
Yeah.
So by roll call, Sarah Wright,
Aye.
Suzanne Keating. Up your mount. You.
She's working on
She's
it.
working on it.
I
Bye.
think that was aye. Okay. Tara,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Amanda.
You had to step out to meet a client.
Okay, and myself, yes, but we do have a quorum to close. I do want to thank everyone today. I think that we had some healthy discussions, and it may seem like we're moving along slowly, but I think we are making leaps and bounds. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Alrighty.
you all.
Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a great